want to talk about something I think is super important. I know being a Christian means faith, means seeing, or means believing without seeing, right? But I think, and I know I posted a video the other day about not taking people's word for something, not just believing something is in the Bible because somebody said it is, right? It's important when we search the scriptures for ourselves. And this word is pretty familiar. It's pretty similar to that, but it's different. And I think this is something God really is trying to get through me right now, is that we shouldn't, again, we shouldn't believe something, but we also shouldn't change something about our lifestyle or do something different because somebody told us or the church told us. Because I know that's a big thing in the church, right? Is a lot of churches have their own kind of rules, I guess, which aren't all biblical, which isn't right, and that's not the way things should be. And so I want to talk about this because I think it's important, because sometimes the church, but it's not all, I don't want to just put this emphasis on the church, I want to put it on everybody, but I do think that it happens a lot in the church, is people will be told something by the church, but also could be by just anybody, could just told something and they just go along with it and believe it, right? Oh, God says that we should be doing this, and we shouldn't have this in our life, and this and this and this, right? And they got all these rules, and at the end of the day it feels like too much to even be like, where's this at in the Bible? And you just go along with it, right? Because they might be throwing so much at you that you don't even feel like going and looking for it yourself, right? But just remember that if God didn't tell you to do it, that's not what's best for you, right? God always tells us to do what's best for us. And just an example of this, I know that church, no church is perfect, but the church I go to, I love it, but they also did tell me to change my lifestyle in a certain way, and I wanted to continue in my lifestyle that way, and I also didn't feel like what they were telling me was biblical. And still, I don't really understand how it's completely biblical, but what I do want to say is, whenever something like that does happen, consult the Lord, right? Consult the Lord and see what He has to say about it, right? Now, before we do something like this, we want to hear before we do something that we're not sure about, before we believe something we're not sure about, or before we change our lifestyle in a way that we're not even sure that God's telling us to do, we want to hear from God Himself, right? Before we do that thing, we want to make sure that we hear from God Himself and make sure He's telling us to do it. So, and now I'm just saying, we don't have to physically hear the voice of God, right? God can speak to us through His Word. He can speak to us. We can ask for signs. God shows signs, and we can, there's all kinds of ways, right? But through His Word or signs, asking Him for signs, or just asking Him for Him to speak to us, however He can get it across to us, because sometimes that's the way to go, because sometimes we don't even know how God could even humble us in this area, or get us to change, right? But sometimes just like, God, if this is your will, however you want it to, however you can change me, however you can get this point across to me, do it, right? So back to that example, is they would tell me something that I don't even feel like is really completely biblical, but I consulted God about it, and right, I think I had changed my lifestyle without even without fully, I did consult the Lord, but I think I changed my lifestyle without being fully sure that God was even telling me to do so. And then I went back because I was like, I want to hear from God himself, right? And and sure enough, I did. I heard from God himself. And so now still, I have changed my lifestyle in that way, but not because the church told me to do so, but because God himself told me to do so, right? And that's the way it should be. And that's not to say like the church, the church tells you something, right? But it's in God's word. That's right. That is God telling you to do something. So it's not, this is not like a don't trust the church, but it's also, like I said, it's for everybody. It's not just in the church. It's for whatever anybody tells you to do. Don't just listen. Consult the Lord. I mean, we should listen and contemplate and try to understand if this is God telling us, right? But also, just don't listen and obey anybody but God. God's the only one that when we hear from him we should obey, right? So God bless you, and I hope this could touch you, just remembering that God's the one we need to be obeying, not everybody else, right? And don't get caught up in all the things that people are telling you to do, how you're supposed to live your life. Just listen to God. And if there are areas of your life you need to change, don't beat yourself up about it, but go to God. Be kind to yourself. There's just a song I was listening to this morning, and it's just like, the only way we can change is not by beating ourselves up, but by and not being cruel to ourselves and mean to ourselves, but beating ourselves up by how we keep falling, but being kind to ourselves the way God's kind to us, and allowing his kindness, allowing his love to change us. And because that's the only way we're going to be changed, is if we're kind to ourselves and we allow God's love and his kindness to transform us, right? Because God's kind to us. He's so kind when we fall. He's so kind. His grace is just, and that's the same kind of kindness, the same kind of grace we need to have with ourselves. Unfailing grace and kindness with ourselves when we're trying to change. Because if we just keep getting down on ourselves and beating ourselves up about it, likely nothing's going to change. So, because that's just, we're just being hard on ourselves, right? And that's not the way we should go about it. So be kind to yourself, and remember, consult the Lord, and God bless you, and happy Sabbath.